I'll start off with thank you for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
Great.
And I'd love to begin our conversation before we get into your work by asking you, looking at April right now, 4 years ago, the world came to a stop. How did you survive COVID and how did it change you?
Oh, we all have our COVID memories, don't we?
Yes.
Uh, March 15th, 2020, I remember getting the word that, COVID was here and the world was kind of coming to a stop. And I had two immediate thoughts. The first one was, wow, I'm probably going to have no income for at least a year. I've been making my living for the last 25 years as a public speaker, a keynote speaker at corporate meetings and events. And obviously, it sure looked like live meetings and events were coming to a screeching halt. So, wow, no income for the next year. And then my second thought was, I've been married for 30 years. And for 30 years, I have been on the road 1, 2, or 3 days a week. And now I'm going to be home every night. I mean, my wife is going to kick me out. I don't know if we're going to make it through this. And remarkably, neither of those things came true. First of all, as you well know, virtual keynote speeches, became kind of in vogue. And by May, I was giving virtual keynote speeches 3 or 4 times a month. And I loved the challenge of how do we make a virtual keynote speech engaging and interactive. And so that's been fun. And even today, here we are, we're on the other side of COVID, I believe. And I'm still speaking once or twice virtually every month and enjoying that a lot and still enjoying that fun challenge. And then my wife actually didn't leave me. It turned out COVID was great. We really enjoyed the time together. She started writing a book every day on our kitchen table, which is now completed. She has a 350-page book that she's getting ready to publish with our daughter. And I started backcountry skiing. I live in Park City, Utah. I started backcountry skiing about 5 days a week, and that got me out of a house in a safe environment. And so I felt like I was away enough that I didn't drive anyone crazy.
Right on. So let me ask you this. What did you want to be when you were a kid? What was your dream to grow up and become?
Yeah, my dream was pretty clear. It started early. It started about 3 years old, and it was fully baked by about age 16. By age 16, I knew I wanted to be a 35-year-old F-16 pilot in the reserves, United Airlines captain based in San Francisco, and a bachelor. I thought that would be the dream.
Yeah.
And as I think Mike Tyson said, you need to have a plan, which I did, and it works great until somebody punches you in the face.
Yeah.
And in my case, things were going pretty well. I was 27 years old. I, by the grace of God, got hired by the Air Force to fly and qualified for Air Force pilot training, got selected to fly F-4 Phantoms. So was flying the F-4 Phantom at McGuire Air Force Base, New Jersey. I got married. I had my first child, and the airlines wouldn't hire me. And it wasn't because I was a bad pilot or not a good fit for the airlines. It was really more because I had about 1,000 hours of flight time. And at that time, the airlines were looking for people with about 3,000 hours of flight time. And so as things tend to work out, a miracle happened. I got hired to fly F-16s in the reserves based in Fresno, California. Again, part of my life dream. And when you join the reserves, when you join a reserve F-16 squadron and get off the active duty, I mean, you're certainly warmly welcomed, which I was, but very quickly your squadron commander kind of takes you aside and says, hey, new guy, time to go find yourself a real job. And unlike most of my squadron mates who had pursued careers as United Airlines pilots or Delta pilots, I chose a different path, which was to pursue my other passion in life of starting and building at least what I thought were great businesses. And so that took me in a very different direction than my dream of being a United Airlines captain based in San Francisco. But I managed to start 2 or 3 different businesses. And that's over 25 years ago today. And that's really made all the difference in my life. That's given me a lot of personal satisfaction, a lot of business growth, and a lot of financial independence. So I feel very, very fortunate that I got punched in the face and my plan didn't quite work out the way I thought it would.
Yep. So let me ask you this: who's been a hero for you in your life?
Wow, I've got a few heroes. I certainly would put my dad at the top of that list. A great man, great human being. Um, he also was a fighter pilot. He flew A-4 Skyhawks in the Navy. He was a United Airlines pilot based in San Francisco. Maybe that was where part of my dream came from. But my dad, I think, taught me, my brothers and sisters, and many around him that the only real emotion is love. And you can get wrapped up in a lot of stuff, but if you lose sight of the one emotion is love, you probably lost sight of the big picture. So I'd say he's one of my greatest heroes. I have another hero, and I seem to be choosing pilots, at least for you, and that's a guy named Charlie Plum, who was the 7-year POW in the Hanoi Hilton in Vietnam, and a great keynote speaker and a great human being who I think also embraces those same core beliefs. He ultimately, although he was tortured rather mercilessly in his time in the Hanoi Hilton, he learned to forgive his the people that kept him under guard. He actually went back and visited some of them, and he went on to live a healthy life because he learned to forgive and he learned to love. So, what a great man.
Absolutely. So what's been your where did you get this motivation, this drive? Obviously, from an early age, you knew what you wanted to do. How did all these seeds of motivation and become an entrepreneur and being a speaker and all these things, how did this become you?
Boy, I don't know exactly. There may be some genetic DNA there. I think having parents who set a good example was powerful to me. I mean, like most young people, we don't always see eye to eye with our parents, and my teenage years weren't without some headbutting, as I think they should be for anyone that's trying to develop into an independent human being. But I think my parents set a really great example, and then I was super lucky in that I grew up in a wonderful community called Palo Alto, California, well before the discovery of the internet. I graduated Palo Alto High School in 1981. And I think Palo Alto was a community where I was surrounded with people who made you dream, inspired you, made you think about what was possible. And I today look at all the people that I graduated high school with or that I knew in the community, and I'm amazed by the things they've done. So I think, social um, climate was a big deal. And then, in my case, the first time I saw a fighter jet, that inspired me at the highest level. I said, I have to do that. And so much of my life was about pursuing that goal, no matter, what tried to get in the way, no matter what kind of speed bumps I had. I kind of never lost sight of that North Star. And, you know, with that, I think just having a North Star and you eventually land on the moon and you think, okay, what's next? At least in my case, flying F-16s opened up a whole world that I didn't even know existed. Whether it's the incredible caliber of people I worked with in the Air Force and really in the Army, the Navy, the Marine Corps, the Coast Guard, the military experience for me was super powerful. Um, and then that seemed to open a lot of doors in business. So one little goal opened, I'm going to say 100, maybe 1,000 doors. And for that, I'm really grateful.
So you have to give out good advice. What's the best advice you've ever gotten?
Mm. You know what? I'm going to twist your question a little bit because the advice I give young people today who I speak to is, pursue your passion. I believe in that. I know there's a lot of people that think, oh no, go after a job where you're guaranteed you'll make money. But in my case, pursuing your passion has really worked for me, and given me a great career. And I also pass on this idea of marry your friend. Um, I recently was the officiant at my daughter's wedding and wrote a poem on this subject as I was thinking about what marriage meant to me. I've been married now for 33 years. And I realized, you can get married for a lot of reasons. You can get married for looks and for love and for maybe even some money or some connections, some, social climbing. But in the end, you probably need to marry your friend if you got a chance of, making it through what can be a pretty challenging situation as you interject family and money and politics and, religion and kids. If you married your friend, I think you got a fighting chance. So I think also choosing a friend as a life partner goes a long way.
Yeah, for sure. What's the best speech as a speaker? What's the best speech you've ever seen with your own eyes?
Wow, that's a good question. I've seen an awful lot. I think I mentioned to you Captain Plum talking
Yeah.
about his experience as a POW in the Hanoi Hilton for 7 years. And he starts his speech by in complete silence, and he starts pacing back and forth uh, on the stage, 7 steps one way, turns around 7 steps the other way. And it might be 5 steps. Forgive me, Captain Plum. And he finally turns to the audience and says, "This is a cell I lived in for 7 years." And bam, you talk about an incredible attention step. Talk about capturing people's imagination.
Yeah.
He's got you right there, and then goes on to just tell an incredible story of the difficult times, and finally getting out and his life after that. So kind of overcoming adversity. You think you've got it bad. Um, Maybe it's not as bad as you think,
Yeah.
because he was in a 5 by 5 square cell, getting beaten a couple times a week, and not getting fed much. So pretty
Wow.
tough one.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. If you had a dream tonight, ran into that 16-year-old version of you that had all of it mapped out, and you knew what you were going to do, and you could give that young version of you a piece of advice based on the life you've lived, the wisdom you've gained, what advice would you give your young self?
Boy, I think one great piece of advice is, your personal network is powerful. The people that my father used to say, right relations. Um, the people that you choose to interact with, and the people that you will interact with because of your professional choices, your social choices, maybe your choice of church or associations you get involved with, will make a tremendous impact in your life. And then I guess the follow on to that was, as you build that network of trusted people, trusted advisors, people you can turn to. Um, don't burn bridges.
Yeah.
You know, life's too short. You may find yourself in situations where you decide, this isn't a relationship that's working for me anymore. I'm going to move on. But try not to burn bridges. Keep your network as sound and stable and warm as you can.
So of everything you've done in your life, what are you the proudest of?
Oh man. For me, I think that's a blink reaction. I'm proudest of my three kids and my family. I've got a 32-year-old daughter who lives in Marin County, California. I've got a 30-year-old daughter who lives in Santa Barbara, and I have a 28-year-old son who lives nearby me in Salt Lake City. And I'm proud of all three of them. They've as I said before, it's not without its challenges. Raising teenagers is not for the faint of heart, but if you kind of stick to it, they come out the other side, and it's really wonderful. So I would have to say I'm very proud of my three children and my core family.
So everyone out there has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, colleagues, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I have to tell you this, Joe. In my house, we actually say I'm the head of the household. I love that you say that I run the show. We say my wife is the neck. She turns the head.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I run the show or not. I try my hardest to keep control. Um, and I lost in telling you that story. I lost sight of your question. What was the core question there?
Well, it's interesting in life. Everybody has this perception of who they think we are. There's all these different people in our lives, but ultimately you're the one that's in control of the perception that comes out. Who do you think you are?
That's a great question. I think I am a father. I think I'm a husband. I think I'm a business owner. I think I'm an entrepreneur. Uh, and I'm a bit of an adrenaline junkie. And you maybe have picked up on that with the F-16 thing. I'm also a very passionate snow skier and surfer. Now that we live in Park City, I'm surfing a lot less and skiing a lot more, but I ski about 80 plus days a year. Um, and I just like things that make my heart beat a little bit. When we're not skiing in the summertime, we're mountain biking a lot. So yeah, and I hope I'm also a good friend. I have many friends and acquaintances, but I think I have a small group of people that I hold dearly as really trusted and long-term friends. And I hope they think of me as a good friend, and I certainly know that I can think of them that way as well.
So what's the greatest thing about living in Utah?
Um, Boy, there are a lot of great things about living in Utah. I've owned a house here since 2018 and used to come out for winters, show up in January, go home in May. And then 2 years ago, maybe two and a half now, my wife and I made the decision to make it full time. And that really was driven by, um, we'd been living in the San Francisco Bay Area before that, which I still love to this day. But things are moving a little more quickly in the Bay Area. And there's a little more space here in Utah. People are moving at a slower pace. They have time for each other. Um, the mountains and the terrain is just incredibly beautiful.
Yeah,
So all of the activities that I love to do are right here, maybe with the exception of surfing, which I still do on a lake behind my boat.
nice.
Um, and then, the other, this is a kind of a funny thing to say, but for me, we live in a beautiful community at 7,000 feet in Park City, so surrounded by mountains. And yet, in 20 minutes, I'm down the hill in Salt Lake City, which has really become a major community and a major city. And I'm 30 minutes from Salt Lake City International Airport, which, thanks to Delta Airlines, I can now fly nonstop almost anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
And that's pretty important to me from a business perspective because I'm still speaking at corporate meetings and events, usually about once a week.
Okay. So speaking of, if anybody wants to hire you, find out more about you, reach out, any of the good business, how do they do that?
The easiest way is through my website, which is called mach2consulting.com. Mach is the speed of sound. Mach 2 is twice the speed of sound. So M is in Mike, ACH, the number two, consulting.com. And my company is called Mach 2 because that's the fastest I've ever gone.
Yeah.
Mach 2, about 1,500 miles an hour or about 20 miles a minute. And
Wow.
so that's one of my great satisfactions in life, since it was a life goal. And that's the best way to find us, is through my website, Mach 2 Consulting, or you can just find me on the web. My last name is spelled a little bit funny. B as in Bravo, Ourke, Anthony Bourke. We say it rhymes with jerk, not dork. So
Right, there you go. And I love that Steve Martin film. Anthony, this has been wonderful. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your story. Best of luck with everything. Keep doing the good work.
Joe, really nice to meet you, and keep doing the good work and keep making that jazz music too.
Yes, sir. Absolutely will. Thank you, sir.
All right. Have a good day.
You too. Take care.